Don't worry. I'll never let anything happen to you. No one will even know you're here. Oh, hello. I didn't hear you come in. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. This is the show where we're going through and reviewing episodes of television shows and cartoons that we grew up on from the 80s and 90s. And right now, we're just on the home stretch of the first season of Batman Beyond, reviewing each and every episode. So if that sounds like something that you might enjoy, just hop below and hit the subscribe button. And you know what? While you're down there, you might as well hit the like button because I think that you're going to enjoy this episode as we talk about Disappearing Inque, which originally aired on May 8th, 1999.
But look at you now. All you've got is me.
Well, this episode brings the first returning villain of the Batman Beyond series with Inque. And they kind of progress her story forward and they do some different things with her character. And this episode really, really holds up and has a lot of great elements in it in such a short period of time. But I'm going to tell you all about that right after our 60-second Blight Bomb rundown of the episode. I'm going to give you an entire rundown of the episode in 60 seconds or less. But like I mentioned, there's a lot in this episode. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but I'll try. We begin in a cryogenic labs where a technician is working with the frozen Inque, and he is in love with her, and he kisses the glass and stuff, and he ends up getting fired, and then he goes in there and sabotages the equipment, and she is able to break out, and she goes, and Batman tries to stop her, but she escapes and goes to the apartment of this guy because he had talked to all about this, and then Terry is fortifying the Batcave, and he sees this Exo Suit that Batman has, and he goes, oh, that hurts my heart, and then they break back into the cryogenic lab, the Inque and this technician, and they try to work with stealing the chemicals that she needs to get her form back, and Batman goes in there to try to stop her, but she captures him and goes, oh, I don't want to just kill you, I want to kill the old one too. Takes him to this arena and then holds him hostage, and he radios Batman and says, hey, Bruce, I'm going to need your help here. And then so she calls him and says, hey, you got to come here, and he comes there, but he has the Exo Suit, and he puts on the Exo Suit, and he fights her, and then we hear some cool music, and then it ends up being that he gives it the guy just wants to be, dang it, the guy just wants to be like her, and so she offers to do that and form him, but she doesn't give him a full dose, so he's kind of melting and falling apart, and Batman in the Exo Suit with the partner with the new Batman fight and take her down, and then the old technician, or the technician, he's not really old, the average age technician, goes and you see him back at the cryogenics lab, and he's being taken care of by another technician doing the same thing to him. Told you there was a lot in this episode.
I'll clean out my locker.
Like I said, this episode is the first returning villain with Inque, and Inque was in the previous episode, Blackout. If you haven't seen that, you can check that out here. She's a great villain and a great adversary for Batman. Now, I know that she's kind of similar to Clayface in the sense that she can morph and change forms, and I said in that episode that it's not that she can take on the forms of other people, but she can kind of liquefy and move into different things, but we do see in this episode that she does take on the form of Batman, the new Batman. When old Bruce comes in, she looks like Batman Beyond, but I guess since she's not an actor like Clayface, and again, you can see my reviews of the Clayface episodes up here, she doesn't do his voice or anything. She just takes on his form and then is able to lure Batman in by doing that.
This is how you want to be?
And I love the dynamic, how they introduce in the beginning that, again, it's the continuity of it. It picks up where we left off, where she had been frozen by Batman and the Mr. Freeze ray gun was left for Barbara Gordon. And now she is being held prisoner in this cryogenics lab. And the technician has fallen for her.
And you're just about all I got.
You know, and I love this idea of this technician that is a lonely guy, and his only companionship is with her, who's frozen and can't talk back and can't say anything about him.
You listen to me.
Which, by the way, That is a very recognizable voice speaking for the technician, which is in fact William H. Macy. And this was really kind of like I don't want to say the height of his career, but certainly the early part of his career where I first started becoming aware of him, because the same year he was in one of my favorite movies, Mystery Men.
Lance Hunt wears glasses. Captain Amazing doesn't wear glasses.
But we have this technician, and he's talking with her and has fallen for her and wants to be like her and all those sorts of things. But I did think it was strange, though, that it starts off with him coming back and he has been turned down for a raise. Okay, so he was just in the boss's office. They turn him down for a raise, and he's upset about that.
Told me that what I do here isn't important enough.
And then he gets called to go back to the office. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. And then he goes,
maybe this'll bring me luck.
And he kisses the glass. And then when he goes into the boss's office, they play back the security camera footage of him doing that.
I'm spending an awful lot of time in there, Aaron.
But he didn't do that until after he was called to the office. So what was the original reason that they were calling him to the office? A little inconsistency. I mean, it can be assumed that he has done things like that in the past, or that it's not the first time that he did it. Just felt like it would have been just as easy for him to come back and do that, kiss the glass, and then get called in the office, and then they show that. It was just a weird misstep there for me.
You want to take this to the review board?
And again, we're building more and more on Terry and Bruce's relationship, and we see some different dynamics, and again, alluding to a little bit more of a history with Bruce Wayne and what happened. We see this Exo Suit.
What's this little toy do?
Careful. It's an Exo Suit.
Which presumably was built for a certain reason or to take on a certain villain. And Bruce explaining that he had to stop using that.
When I tested it, it put too much strain on my heart.
And Terry mentioning that he thinks there's more to the story than what Bruce is saying. And I love that sort of story that we're unraveling in more of a serialized episodic show way. That there's a overarching story that we're seeing developing, rolling out as time goes on.
You'd let a little thing like a heart problem stop you from being Batman?
And again, maybe it's just because I was always more interested in the original Batman series and the Bruce Wayne story that's interesting to me. And it's something too that I don't think as a kid or as a younger person watching a show like this that I would pick up on or I would be necessarily as interested in, because that's one of the nice things about shows like this is that you can literally watch any episode and pretty quickly pick up on where things are at. And obviously the more that you watch, the more information that you can pack in there, but it's not like it has to be watched in order, like a serialized series. Serialized, is that the right word? Serialized series?
Someday you're gonna tell me the real reason why you stopped being Batman.
You know, and I like both of them for different reasons, but they have just enough of those elements that are kind of connecting and weaving the stories together. And I kind of enjoy that. And I'm interested to see what else we will learn about that gap of time where Bruce Wayne wasn't Batman.
Lots of things. It's taken me, 6 months just to get you to show me around the cave?
And we see how Bruce and Terry are both taking on this situation differently. We have Terry is just fortifying the Batcave and sealing it up, and Bruce is doing more investigation.
It's called getting to know your enemy.
And again, we are acknowledging both of those options, and both of those kind of come into play, and different styles of taking on the same villain, which is some of the things that I liked about the Bruce and Superman, or the Batman and Superman team-ups, is because they had very different approaches to that. And I just enjoy characters like that are fleshed out and not just kind of one-dimensional, and not just, okay, here's the villain, let's fight her, let's take her on, but there's different techniques, there's different tactics going in there.
I'll be at the microscope.
And we even with that, we kind of get to see a little bit of sarcasm from Bruce that obviously he thinks his way is better.
You think?
And he's 2 or 3 steps ahead of Terry, and Terry kind of catching up to what the plan is. And Bruce always being prepared, always having the right tools for the job as he needs that.
It's not as good as Mr. Freeze's gun, but it's the best I could do on short notice.
And where this story is really interesting is that while all that's going on, we are also following the story of Inque and the technician, Aaron Herbst, I think his name is. And we're seeing that developing out.
I'd do anything for you.
For this guy, it's not just an infatuation with her or a love interest, but he wants to be like her. He wants her powers. He wants to be somebody. And even though I think this is the only appearance of that character, there's such a fleshed out character to him that he's not just a placeholder of a way of getting her out or breaking her out or sabotaging the equipment so that she can get out and then she does her own thing. But she and him are kind of codependent on each other, and she needs his help to get her form back. And he wants something from her, which is to become like her.
Dead serious. The power you've got, I want it.
Which is an interesting obsession because she probably wants nothing to do with being that way. And we still haven't really figured out what her history is yet in the continuity of the story. I'm sure a lot of you already know. And so he has his own wants and needs in the story, and that all ties together at the end.
Then you'll get it.
And just on a design level, I love the different uses of different areas or different places in Gotham. We get to see Batman captured and taken to this arena, and it's raining, and we have the glass dome. Just a great location and a great use of another space in Gotham that where this final showdown takes place, and we kind of have all parties there.
What else can you tell me?
Which in that climactic scene brings in one of the elements, and here we are in the third act of the show, of the episode, and there's been so much that has happened and so many interesting elements to that, and we finally pay off what was set up earlier in the episode with Terry seeing the Exo Suit, that we see Bruce Wayne being called in there.
This is gonna be perfect.
And again, not just, Terry got captured and so Bruce has to go save him, but it's a developed story that in the first episode with Inque, she was hired to kill Batman. But she has developed a dislike or a hatred for not just Batman, but also the other Batman, the other guy, Bruce, that is involved in this. And she goes, I want to take them both down. So she calls in and has Bruce show up, or wants the other Batman to show up as well. So it's a justified reason that it isn't just, Terry couldn't get out of this one, Batman couldn't get out of this one, so Bruce has to come in and save the day.
No, I once took an assignment to kill him.
No, he's being called out. He's being challenged to this duel. And so he shows up, takes on, the sacrifice level of takes on this Exo Suit again, even though it's bad for his heart, and goes in for this final showdown. Oh no. And yes, as a fan of the original series and a fan of Bruce Wayne, to see him have that Exo Suit put on and the original Batman theme come out was awesome. And that scene was just incredible to see him finally step up and take the showdown. And again, they waited until now we're almost to the end of the first season before we really saw Batman or Bruce Wayne back in action. Sure, in the first episode when it was 20 years ago, we got to see a little bit of that, but it really wasn't Bruce in all his glory. He was a little bit of a falling apart at that point, which if you want to see that episode, you can click up here. But we get to see him in all his glory, and sure, he's using an Exo Suit, but it was very satisfying to see him finally taking on and finally, having a reason to be in the fight and holding his own against the villain. So just a great scene and a great reveal for that, and it was one of those elements of the story with old Bruce and the exosuits and technology and all those sorts of things. It was probably inevitably going to happen at some point. There was going to be a story where they put Bruce back into the action, but this was very satisfying, and I thought it was a great episode to pick that, to have that happen in this episode.
But tonight I'm glad you didn't stay retired.
And of course, at the end, I always like episodes that kind of come full circle and have a complete story. And I had mentioned in a couple of the other episodes that the ending was a little abrupt, and it just felt like we've had all this stuff happen. Now the episode's over, roll credits. But this one kind of brings it full circle that the Aaron, the technician, wanted what Inque had and wanted to be able to morph. But what also came with that was being held prisoner, being codependent on somebody else to take care of him, and having somebody else that is sharing their life story. So he ends up getting exactly what he asked for, even though it was probably more than what he wanted, but he gets the entire life that Inque had, which is, I don't think exactly how he wanted to spend the rest of his life.
And you'll never guess how much it means to me.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, yes, it has a lot of great elements to it. And it's sort of the type of episode that I've been waiting for. And I knew that that was going to happen, that the first season was going to be a lot of, introducing new characters and new villains and setting up the new future of Batman and introducing a new Batman. And there was going to be a lot of that. But these are the type of episodes where I was waiting to get into, is that here we have a villain that was already established in a previous episode, and then we can tell another story with her, and we already know who she is, and we already know what her powers are, and it is just a repeat of the other episode, a very different episode from Blackout, which I also enjoyed because she's a great villain, but we have these other elements. It's a great story with Aaron as the technician. There's great elements to it with the production design of the arena and that final battle with having Bruce back in the action. Just a lot of great elements to this episode. So for all those reasons, I rank this at the number 1 spot of my favorite episodes so far. And I think a couple of people in the comments guessed that this would end up being my number 1 episode for a little while anyway. We have 2 more seasons of the show to watch. Yes, I think it deserves to be placed up at the number 1 spot because it has all those elements. We get to see Bruce in action. We get to see a great story between a villain and somebody that wants to be like that villain. We get to see Terry and Bruce's differences. We get to see a great challenge to Batman with Inque as a formidable threat. It's just an action-packed, filled, well put together episode. I don't know what else to say about it. So I do have it beating out Dead Man's Hand, which is a great episode. And I think that will remain up in the top 5 of my favorite episodes because even though it's the introduction episode of these characters, it does have they allude to a history of them, and they have a long history, and I love that element of those characters, and I love that episode also has that kind of B plot where Terry is falling in love with a member of the gang, and just those are the kind of episodes that I like, but this one is just a skosh better than that one, just because there's so much other elements to it, and I'm sorry, it has Bruce Wayne in an Exo Suit, and I think that was just enough to push it over the edge.
Poor deluded fool.
So let me know, since this is the first villain that we've seen repeated in Batman Beyond, do you think it was a good choice to use Inque as the first repeat villain, or would you have liked to see somebody else come back in a featured episode before Inque? And do you think this episode was wasted on Inque, or should it have been somebody else? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button. If you want to see more episodes like this, then just hit subscribe. I have new episodes coming out every Tuesday and Thursday, and if you want, you can hit the little bell notification, and it'll notify you every time that I have a new episode when it drops, as the kids say. And next up, I'm going to be talking about the episode A Touch of Curari. I have trouble with saying words sometimes, but I think I'm saying that one right. And so you don't want to miss that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode. I'll see you soon.